States of America was founded as a representative democracy over 200 years ago. The USA has a written constitution that specifies and implies our rights as citizens. This constitution is a contract that citizens have with their government. The constitution begins with the words, "We the people." That short phrase characterizes the freedoms and responsibilities contained in the remainder of America's most important legal document. Americans enjoy rights and personal freedoms based on the rule of law expressed in the Constitution, in state laws, and in local ordinances. The authority of our Constitution gives Americans unprecedented freedoms and responsibilities. These freedoms have led to the development of limitless opportunities and the strongest economy the world has ever seen. The protection of our rights and liberties is supported through a strong court system dependent on the trust and confidence of the public. Under the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution, every citizen is guaranteed the right to a trial by a jury of their peers. The court system is the foundation for the rule of law in our country.
Our jury system here in the United States is unique among all civil and criminal justice systems across the world. You will find no other country with this basic unfettered right that our people have when they have a dispute before the court to have that dispute resolved by a jury of their peers.
People feel a lot better about the system after they participated in it. After they participate, they say that 97% of them say, that's the way I'd want my case resolved if I had a case.
There is no higher calling for the average citizens to do public service and to serve their community than being a juror.
There are two boxes that citizens participate in, the voting box and the jury box. Jury service is an important and essential ingredient in the justice system, and without citizens who are willing to come up here and fulfill their duty under the law, our system simply will not work.
Jury service is both a duty and a privilege. As citizens, we may be required to serve as jurors from time to time to come to decisions that may affect the lives of our fellow citizens. When you serve on a jury, another person's life, freedom, or property may depend on your decisions. It's an important and serious responsibility. For many of us, jury duty may be a unique opportunity to see firsthand how the courts actually work.
My first impression when I went to the mailbox and had a jury summons was, really? Really? Which I think is most people's first impression.
Initially, it was a little annoying. My experience as a juror was a little annoying because it interrupts my daily workflow. But as I got into the process, I found it a wonderful experience.
I recognize that when most jurors get that summons in the mail, they're not excited to see it. It's not met with a cry of joy, so to speak. We understand that.
There's just so many different factors that I don't think the normal citizen who is not part of the justice system takes into account. All the work that goes into it, all the people that are involved, and just the seriousness of it.
Jury service is an imposition. It's an inconvenience to people. However, jury service is also a very rewarding experience, and look at it as one of the most important civic duties that citizens can perform.
Every year, tens of millions of people are involved in jury duty nationwide. In Gwinnett County, tens of thousands are needed for jury duty each year.
We do the best we can to accommodate our jurors and make it as easy as possible by sending their summons out weeks in advance to give them plenty of time to plan for jury duty.
In Gwinnett County, jury service is usually limited to one day or one trial, whichever is greater. Some trials may take only a few hours. In rare cases, some trials may take several weeks. If you are selected to serve on a trial, you must serve until the end of that trial, no matter how long it may take.
In Gwinnett County, we have a jury service that requires one day or one trial. You're selected to come in one day during the week. If you're not selected for a trial on that day, then your service is complete for the week and you can go back to your normal everyday business. However, if you are selected, the day that you report, if you're selected for a trial, you have to come for the full duration of the trial.
The length of time that a juror serves depends on the subject matter that is before the juror and the court at the time. It could vary from a day up until, weeks at a time.
Being a juror doesn't require special skills, expertise, or education. Your job as a juror is to listen to and observe the evidence presented in a trial. Together with other jurors, you will determine the truth to to the best of your ability, based on the evidence presented in a case and the instructions given you by the judge. You must be fair, impartial, and willing to keep an open mind.
There are no special qualifications for being a juror. Don't be alarmed when you get your summons and worry that you won't know what to do or how to do it. What we're looking for in jurors is for citizens who will listen carefully, who will apply their common sense,
and just bring your own worldly experiences to the jury box.
There are no special skills required to be a juror, but a juror must be able to be impartial and to follow the directions provided by the judge.
The only requirement is to be open-minded and to, understand what your role is as a juror.
If you have any questions or problems, please ask for the assistance of the jury staff. If you leave and have to return for the completion of a trial, you must check in at the counter with the jury administrative staff. This is to confirm your attendance and also to ensure that you receive your jury compensation fee. For those of you who are hearing impaired, the jury staff can assist you to determine if you can be helped by an assistive listening device. There is public Wi-Fi available in the jury assembly room. There are no public computers available for your use. Cell phone calls can be made from the jury assembly room whenever you are not engaged in official juror activities. You will need to turn off all electronic devices before entering the courtroom so they won't create any distraction or violate court security procedures. The Gwinnett County Justice and Administration Center is a smokeless facility. Smoking is not permitted anywhere inside any county building.
Once jurors are brought in and we get everybody checked into our large jury pool, you're then narrowed down to panels for each one of the judges, and it'll feel a little bit of like musical chairs once you come in, because we'll have everybody get up and then move to different assigned seats. We'll have a screen that's given up front with different numbers on the chairs, and names will appear, and we'll help you with your seating arrangements. We just ask that you remember the people that you're seated around. It helps you remember where your assigned seat is, and then once you get to the courtroom, you'll have to be reseated in that order.
Once the panels are complete, potential jurors will be called in groups and taken to a courtroom for the jury selection process. Lawyers for both sides may ask potential jurors questions about any matters they feel are relevant to juror selection. Some questions may seem personal, but are not intended to embarrass anyone. During the questioning process, attorneys will eliminate a number of juror candidates as they work to reach the final jury.
Process of voir dire is the fancy way of saying selecting jurors. And how that works is that you have parties, or litigants as we call them in a case, that get an opportunity to ask a general panel of jurors questions to determine their biases, likes, dislikes, to see whether they can sit and listen to this case fairly and impartially.
If prospective jurors are not chosen for a panel, they may be reassigned if needed to another panel as a juror candidate. Jurors must not leave for the day without being dismissed by the jury staff. When returning to the courthouse, after breaks or due to multi-day trials, jurors must always report to the jury assembly room and must never report directly to the courtroom in which a case may be heard.
When you enter the courtroom, you're going to see a lot of people. First and foremost, of course, as you walk in, you're going to see a judge sitting on what we call the bench. That's just kind of a raised area at the back of the courtroom.
Right beside the judge would be a witness stand where anybody that would testify would take a seat in that witness stand. Off to the side along the wall would be where you, the jurors, would sit and would hear the evidence in the case.
You will also see in the courtroom other personnel. Of course, by then you will have met your bailiffs. The bailiffs are there, of course, to assist the court in organizing the jury and to look after the jury.
We take the jurors to and from the courtrooms. We explain to them about the seating arrangements. We explain why it's so necessary for them to turn the cell phones off and all electronics.
We take an oath, and the oath is that we keep our jurors fair and impartial throughout the process, which means that no one can communicate with them and they can't communicate with each other.
Deputies are assigned to the courtrooms for a multitude of purposes. First and foremost, they provide security, not only for the litigants and the court, but for jurors as well. They just make sure that everyone in the courtroom remains safe and that there's order in the courtroom.
You'll see the court reporter who's usually there, and they're always required to be there, taking down any of the discussions that are made by the attorneys or the parties or the witnesses in the case.
Attorneys and the clients they represent sit at the two tables near the front of the courtroom throughout the trial. The attorneys will present evidence to the jury and will examine evidence presented by the other parties in the trial.
The first thing that a jury hears during the start of a trial is what we refer to as an opening statement. An opening statement is not evidence, it's simply where the law allows the attorneys to outline the case to the jurors. Following the presentation of opening statements, the next stage of the trial is the evidentiary part of the trial, and this is where the witnesses appear and testify under oath as to the facts within their knowledge. Following the closing arguments, we have what we call the charge. That's where the judges are required to instruct the jury on the law that applies to that particular case. Once jurors have heard all the evidence and heard the law that applies, then jurors begin what we call deliberations.
One thing we tell jurors before we allow them to go deliberate is they must pick a foreperson, and that is very important in this aspect. A foreperson helps the jury have a focal point to focus their deliberations.
Deliberations is that formal process where the jurors talk amongst themselves, talk about the facts of the case, discuss the law that the judge gave them, apply the law to the facts, and reach their verdict in the case.
During the trial and recesses, jurors must not talk about the case with each other, nor with any other person, or allow anyone else to talk about the case in your presence. You should also avoid all contact with any lawyer, witness, or party involved in the case. Any contact may require an expensive retrial. So the county and the judge in the case take these matters very seriously. If a party interested in the outcome of the case approaches you, report this communication immediately and privately to your bailiff.
If jurors were to go into outside research or try to have discussions with friends or family members who may be involved in the law or legal profession, or look things up on the internet, things like that, they would be gaining outside information that was not produced in court, and the law does not allow that.
Once the jury has reached a verdict, the jury foreperson will contact the bailiff.
We have reached a decision.
You'll be returned to the courtroom as soon as everyone can be assembled for the verdict to be read. After the verdict has been announced, the judge will formally dismiss you from the trial. You must report back to the jury assembly room for further instructions. Whether you actually serve on a jury or not, you will receive a small compensation in the mail for each day you're required to report to the facility.
We really appreciate that you're coming in and taking the time out of your daily life to serve as a juror, and we appreciate your patience.
We understand that for many of you, jury duty is an inconvenience, interrupting your personal and work life. The judges appreciate the sacrifices you make in order to serve. Trial by jury is at the heart of American justice, and for citizens, there is no higher contribution you can make to our society than serving as a juror.